Hello, everyone. This is Ronnie from the Love Fruit podcast and this YouTube channel and the UK Fruit Fest, wherever you've seen me from. And today, this is a little bit different. I'm gonna do a video talking or a podcast, a video about the Woodstock Fruit Festival and some of my experiences there. I might talk about some of the other festivals, or I might make a separate thing about my travels this summer to some of the other events, and it'd probably be good for some of you to know more about those. And I suppose the reason I want to film this and talk about this stuff and record this, put it out there, is because I have a big, strong connection with the Woodstock Festival, for me personally anyway. And I wrote something after it, and things are changing with the festival, and I thought I wanted to talk about my experience there, and for my benefit a lot as well, to sort of talk about this stuff. And I'll talk about the event this year, how it was, give a bit of a review. I'm going to probably firstly read out the thing I wrote about how I'm personally sort of feeling about the whole situation with the fest. I'll talk a little bit more about what's going on with the Woodstock Fruit Festival, and I'll talk about some of the highlights from the event, what happened at it, travel there, accommodation, schedule, all these things, if you might want to attend someday, that you may be interested in. And for those of you who know nothing about this, I'm assuming that you're on this channel or you're listening to this because of an interest in, at the very least, a vegan diet, a raw vegan diet, a healthier diet, a fruit-based diet, raw foods, and all that kind of stuff. And there's not a lot of places for people who are into that to go and meet up and spend time together. And even, restaurants and places like that are kind of few and far between. And smoothie places or juice places or whatever, at least where I come from, they're kind of rare, and there's not a lot out there. If you want to meet other people doing this, you sort of have to make that effort yourself to maybe put something together and invite people to your own stuff. And I've done a bit of that over the years, but Woodstock has been the biggest event internationally of this lifestyle that we call, if we want to call it, fruit-based, raw vegan, fruitarian. It's the biggest, the best attended, essentially, and it has been since it started. And it's on the website, I'll just read it out. It says, a celebration of health, fruit-based diet, and personal growth. That's what it's all about. The world's largest all-inclusive raw vegan health retreat. It lasts a week. It's taking place at roughly the middle to the end of August every year since 2011. And it did take place in Camp Walden, which was in upstate New York. And the first year of the festival, it took place at a place called Menla, which is another place in upstate New York. I never went to the first one, so I don't really know much about it apart from having watched videos on it. I wasn't there. And they also did one in Hawaii one year, and I wasn't there. I've been to all of them at Camp Walden. And you might ask yourself, why would I, coming from Scotland, have made this journey? Because you're thinking, well, after you've been 2 or 3 or 4 times, surely you've kind of got it by now. You've experienced it, you've went to the classes, you've enjoyed it, you get it. And I think that's the way that a lot of people have treated it. Like, oh, I've been to it a couple of times, I've kind of done it, And for me, it just doesn't make sense for me to not keep going if you're enjoying it and it's that good and it's a highlight of your year, and in many ways a highlight of your life. Like, why wouldn't you just keep on going? And I always wanted to go. Always wanted to support the event and be part of it, but importantly, part of it as an attendee. It was a place for me to go and relax and enjoy myself and meet people and spend time with people and be in a fantastic location and kind of feel like you're in a place where you're, I guess, getting taken care of by a good group of people, and the diet's just automatically happening and all that stuff. So I've enjoyed my experience more and more the more that I've went. I'll read out my own kind of one of my tributes to it, but the event has always been based on this lifestyle. I'll go over more of the, I suppose, what I see as the history of it, my own perspective on it, maybe in a little bit. But I'll read out what I've said. And as I said, I've been there 10 times, and I am a raw vegan. I'm a committed raw vegan. Really, going to Woodstock was the first event I went to, the first time I met other raw vegans in real life, I think. And at that time as well, it was that was the time when this movement was gaining a lot of traction and momentum, and the 80-10-10 diet was really growing and growing and growing, and all the YouTubers were growing and growing, and it was very exciting. And I think Woodstock doubled in size or something from one year to the next for maybe the first couple of years, and that was really exciting to be part of that, and it kind of felt like you were part of a movement, really, and it really felt like it was exploding and going somewhere, and it's interesting to think back that that's kind of where it was at, or where I was looking at the time. But let me read this out. So I wrote the first part of this when I was leaving the camp. And to put it in perspective, well, this will probably come up in the thing I'm reading, but it's been at Camp Walden since 2012, and I've only ever been to at Camp Walden. And personally, I've developed a real strong connection, not just with the people of the festival and of the festival itself, but with that place. That place is where I associate that festival. It's a place where I learned and developed and went through growth and met wonderful people and started great friendships, and some relationships that were deeper than friendships, and met people that I did all sorts of things with, and who I ended up coming to my events, ended up sometimes doing events together with. A lot of stuff happened for me at Woodstock. I've had friends there that died, that had memorial services there, friends that got married there. I've seen a lot of life come and go at the festival, a lot of babies being born, not like at the festival, but, but babies and couples and children turning into, adults basically almost in 10 years. And so it's been a big part of life, and the tribe is, I grew up, like a lot of you, like many of you, I grew up in a place where being healthy is not really a big cultural thing, and that's probably the case for a lot of us worldwide. That's not a special thing. But for me, I come from Scotland, and here and in the UK there's a drinking culture. I've never been part of that. I've never been a drinker. There's a drug culture which I've never been part of. There's a kind of party culture. Glasgow's a very kind of not just drinking but getting drunk culture, and getting wild kind of culture, and a bit crazy. And that can be fun for people, and I'm happy for people to do that. Like, that's them having fun, that's them living their life. I enjoy seeing people enjoying themselves if that's what they want to do. There is a dark side to all that, but but to some degree that's all fine. But I'm not part of it, and I don't connect with it. And I don't connect with a lot of the socializing and the way that people connect and the way people socialize where I am. And then there's, more of a drug culture or whatever, which I'm not part of. And then even if you then say, I've tried to be part of other communities and other things, Um, Musicians, I've always been a musician, and musicians were often people that wanted to party or drink or whatever as well. I was like really wanted to be committed to the creativity, the art, and all that stuff. Um, and for me, music's kind of a spiritual thing in a way, and for a lot, but for a lot of musicians, it's not that at all, right? And it's maybe just a way for them to get attention and all that stuff, and that's fine as well. So I never really naturally connected with a lot of musicians. Only if a small amount did I really have a kind of connection with. I think in music wise, and then but generally didn't fit in with musicians a lot. And then like uh, spiritual kind of communities and movements and classes, and I loved all that stuff. And um, I do a martial art called Aikido, and I like that, and I like the people that go to that, and Toastmasters. Like I've been part of lots of different things, but especially with say in spiritual circles, you're thinking, okay, these are more conscious people that are going to kind of take care of themselves more, but they're not as well. Like a lot of time in spiritual groups, the people aren't particularly healthy. They don't really look after themselves that much, and kind of meditation, all these techniques they're doing is sort of to escape from their body a little bit, which I never really liked. And then in say fitness and sports, like a lot of those people aren't really into being healthy. Like they're into being fit, but they're not really sort of taking care of themselves in a good way. And in veganism, like people aren't really looking to be healthy a lot of the time. So I was always kind of slightly healthier guy than most people, and that always made sense to me. And then I didn't really fit in with the way a lot of people were, and tolerated that. The coming to Woodstock, it was really one of the first times I really felt like these are people that have obviously made the same connection I've made, and get the whole looking after yourself thing on a diet level and on a health level, and the idea that actually feeling good is about about sorry is about feeding yourself well, and that there's a joy in life from being healthy. Like being healthy is not a bad thing or whatever. So I love that. That's really my tribe, is the people in this movement, and a lot of them are also people into personal growth and development and spiritual ideas and all these things. So I connect with them on that level as well. A lot of people are not particularly music orientated in the whole raw vegan scene, to be honest. Like there's or necessarily artistically inclined, but um, I connect with them on a number of ways, and I felt really comfortable. The first time I went there was 2012, is it? And the funny thing about that was I had the year before 2011, I went to New York for the first time with an ex-girlfriend, and she really wanted to go. I wasn't particularly that bothered about going to New York, but she had family in Philadelphia. Yeah, Philadelphia. So we went there, and then we went to New York, and it was a big deal for her to go to New York, and we went to the Broadway shows, and we did all these cool things, and I wasn't a raw vegan at the time. I think I was a vegetarian, and it was a good time. And then when we were leaving, she said, "Do you think you'll come back to New York? You think you'll ever come back?" And I said, like, I don't really think so. Maybe if there's a reason to go. But I wasn't like thinking, oh, I'm gonna rush back to New York. I ended up going back to New York every year after that, and except from 2020 with the COVID restrictions, and I, developed a connection with the festival. New York and Manhattan, apart outside of Glasgow, there's not a lot of places that I know better than Manhattan and sort of New York area, and I've seen a lot of it, and I've been there a lot, and So I have a connection with New York as well as and with Manhattan, connected with this whole tribe and lifestyle and everything. And the first time I ever went, I saw the videos online. I was getting into the raw vegan diet, and I was watching Durian Rider's videos, and he was training in Central Park, and I was like, I've just been at Central Park. I just got home from this holiday, and like, I might have walked past that guy. I might have been in the same park as him, and I still think about that sometimes. Like I was in New York, kind of when the first Woodstock was happening. I wasn't connected with the raw vegan diet yet. Hadn't got into that at all yet. But it was just a coincidence. So I saw his videos of him training in Central Park. I was getting into his videos. I was getting into 8 to 10 10. I was starting to experiment with it very slowly. I didn't jump into this very quick, and but gradually got more and more into it, and came across the videos of the Woodstock Fruit Festival, and started to watch those videos. And if you've seen the videos from 2011, the first festival, you can go to the Woodstock Fruit Festival YouTube channel. It's like some of the first videos that are on it if you go back to the start. And those videos just called out to me. And those videos and the fact that all these different people I was following were going to go. And I just really felt the calling, and really felt like this is going to be like this really special group of people who are on the best diet. I already felt like this diet makes people special and different and gives them superpowers. Like I really sort of thought of it that at the time, and people have this great level of extra level of connection, and some of that's true. It's not always entirely true, you know, but people have their different experiences. But I was in that point, I was really open to the idea that this diet made people different and made people special, and like opened up people to a better part of themselves and made people feel good all the time. And I wanted to meet the people who were doing it, and wanted to experience what it'd be like to be around all these great people at the same time, and see what the community of, or what people would be like to each other. Because I'd always felt like a little bit of an odd one out in terms of how I wanted to treat myself, how I wanted to treat other people. I just thought like I felt a bit disconnected from the way a lot of people were. And I was thinking maybe this is where I would, I suppose, fit in a bit more, or feel like this is how people should be, should act, and maybe the diet would bring that out in people. And those videos still impact me really to this day. And there's a lot of genuine emotion in those videos, because a lot of those people, the pioneers at the time, the speakers who were invited to the event, they were meeting each other for the very first time. And some of them were meeting probably other raw vegans like for the very first time, or being at an event like that. And you can see the genuine emotion in them for being at that event and how it's affected them. And that really comes across on film. But you also see how people are interacting with each other, and just like loving on each other and massaging each other, and and then there's a lot of athletics going on and people running around and excited and jumping around, and you think, look at all these people with all this energy and all this everything, you know. And I wasn't 100% on the diet yet, so I was kind of thinking maybe this all comes to me when I get when I get this all right. Still, it took me a while to make that decision, and I made the decision to go. And I actually, one of the reasons I made the decision to go was I was like thinking about it. I was sitting at a bus stop in the morning on my way to work, and a truck went past that said Woodstock, and I was thinking about the festival, and that made me go, okay, I'm going. And that's kind of, it's sad to me in a sense that it took for me to see that to make the decision. I think I was already mostly there, but I saw that and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and actually pay for a ticket. I actually bought a ticket, or tried to. I think I tried to register, and then when I went to pay, I was told that I'd paid too late and I had to pay more. And it's funny looking back that that's the kind of thing that could make a person go, "Oh, I'm not going to bother then," you know, because it's not the greatest customer service if you go to register and log in, and and then after midnight or whatever it was, the payment goes up and it's like, oh, you have to pay more. Like, it was a bit of a funny experience at the time, but it didn't stop me. And at the time there wasn't so many like Facebook forums and stuff. There was people just had forums as websites. So there was the 30 Bananas a Day website, and the Woodstock Fruit Festival had its own forum on its own website, and that's where people were interacting about the festival a lot. And I met people online there, and we kind of made arrangements to sort of try and stay in the same hostel, and I think I put together the idea of doing a fruit luck the night before in Central Park, and that actually happened, but I wasn't able to make it there because my flight was quite late and I was stuck in the immigration for a while. And there's actually quite a lot of stories to go into about that. The first night I was there, I arrived in New York. I couldn't get money out of the bank. I hadn't alerted my bank to the fact that I was going to the US. I couldn't get money out. I only had like £15 of UK money. I had to go and exchange that to pay for like a metro ticket, a subway ticket. And then randomly I got a phone call or a message from a girl who'd been on the forum, and some of us had shared phone numbers, but she noticed that I wasn't at the Fruit Lock, and she phoned me, and I was like, I'm kind of stranded and I've got no money. And she came and picked me up, and this other guy, this guy Sel, Turkish guy, they're both Turkish actually, but one of them was living in New York, and that shows how international the event was. There was people at that hostel from like Turkey, Holland, um, obviously from the UK, from a bunch of other places. It was very, very international, more so than it probably was in the last few years. But anyway, um, and they actually gave me some money, and they took me to Whole Foods and looked after me, and it was like it was like already like a great experience, right? Of how people sort of were at the event, and how we were already like helping each other out. That first festival sort of changed my life. I had a fantastic time. I met great people. One of my good friends, Connor, who I've not been in touch with in a long time, really, but there was a time where I was really tight with him, and I met him the first night at Woodstock. Some of you might know him as Connor McMillan, or Connor and Brittany, like Connor from Connor and Brittany. Some of you might know them. And I just loved that guy. Like I met him on the first night, and I was like, this guy's amazing. I want to spend more time with him. And I spent a lot of the week with him and a few other people, uh, and met a lot of. I just had lots of great conversations. Being able to talk to people about this diet and lifestyle, we all had the same we had the same stories, the same challenges, the same problems and things, and we'd watched a lot of the same videos and a lot of the same content, read the same books, so we just had so many things to connect with, and it was just a great experience all around, and I really committed to that, and I sort of became a super fan of the festival, really. And I also met Robert Lockhart there. I was able to go and see talks from all of these great speakers, um, and I remember like the first day, I think I might have met Harley during it. I might have met him in the first night or the second night or something. But to me, he was like kind of a famous guy at the time, like meeting a star, you know. And Dan McDonald, I remember being in the queue with him. He wasn't as familiar to me. I didn't know him as well, but other people were kind of freaking out that they were around Dan McDonald, and I was like, "Oh, there's Dan McDonald." And I said something like, "Wow, you're not as skinny as." It was a bad thing to say, but I think he made a video about like people calling him skinny, and I was trying to make a comment like, "You're really not. You don't look skinny at all," or whatever. He was quite a big guy, and a muscular guy, and a tall guy, and he just looked like he was really uncomfortable. And I made him uncomfortable a couple of times when I said I tried to talk to him a couple of times. I was able to go to Doug's classes and go to his lectures. I might have Tim Van Orden was like, he was a big hero of mine. I got to meet him. Um, I said to Tim, you kind of inspired me to get into this, and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry," you know. I thought, and that was quite funny. Tony Wright, I remember he was speaking there, and a lot of us were going to his talks. Um, it was a packed event. It was magic. It was great. I didn't socialize as much in those first few years. I wanted to get the information. And Robert Lockhart spoke to me one day because he heard my accent and he came up and started talking to me. And I was blown away by that because I'd seen him in videos and he was another, like, you know, like a kind of a legend. And then the next morning I got up and I went to the basketball courts, which is at the top of the camp. And he was working out on his own and doing pull-ups and like full, like wide grip pull-ups, which I still can't do one of those. I've really not committed to that. But he was doing, he was working out, and I just thought to myself, it was like someone implanting a new vision in your head of what's possible, of like actually a person in their late 60s, 70s can be fit and healthy and strong and have no arthritis and have no joint issues and can be getting up and exercising and can be completely committed. And he was totally committed to this diet. You know, he was 100% raw vegan, or fruitarian, whatever he would call himself. And he was really super committed to it and very passionate about it. And just being around him, and I don't know if I ever really connected with Robert that good, but we were friends. But that definitely affected me, that meeting him, but also meeting all the others. But definitely, I think that was a point where I went, I want to commit to this. I want to actually commit to this diet, commit to me, commit to being the guy that in my 70s or 80s is working out and doing pull-ups in the morning on the basketball court or whatever, you know. Like that's, I just thought that's the vision, and that's really still the vision for me that's expanded as being that, being still fit and healthy at an older age and active, and your brain still being active, and all of that, you know. And there was a podcast recently with a guy who was on the Rich Roll podcast. He interviewed a guy, I think his name was Mike Nelson or something. Maybe that's maybe not the name, but he's 100 years old. He's a vegan or plant-based runner, runs marathons and stuff, and he asked him about being 100, and he said, "These are honestly the best days of my life." And that's my vision. Like that's I want to be, and I believe it's possible to be 100 years old, having the best days of your life. All the friends that you've accumulated, you're able to meet their great grandchildren, but you're able to still have fun and a good time with them and go and visit them, and you know, live a rich life, because you have the health and the fitness to back that up, and the presence of mind and all that stuff. So Woodstock really gave me that vision, and I really came, I wouldn't say I came out, but it was a place where, because no one there knew me prior to the event, I could be who I wanted to be. And that's an important thing about these events as well. Like, you can allow yourself to come out of yourself and expand and try a different part of yourself, and develop, you know, and that, it's hard to explain a little bit, but I remember the first year we're dancing around the campfire, and that's not really something I would usually do that much, but we were like taking all our clothes, not going naked, but taking our tops off, dancing around the campfire, banging the drums, like going crazy, just like having fun, enjoying ourselves. No alcohol, no drugs, no any of that stuff involved, and that's not something I would necessarily do around my other friends, like back home or whatever. But it was just bringing out a different part of myself, and I was very happy at these events, you know, and just very glad to be there, and just love the feeling and love the people there, you know, basically. So that's a bit of a backstory, and I've been back ever since. And I wrote this when I was leaving the camp this year, Leaving the Woodstock Fruit Festival 2022, I leave a piece of me behind. I've not cried in a while, but today I was sobbing while I left the camp. Rumours had circulated all week that the Woodstock Fruit Festival, the world's biggest event celebrating the raw vegan lifestyle, would be leaving Camp Walden for good. This ends an 11-year connection with the camp. For me, I have attended the festival each time it was at this camp from 2012 to 2022, with COVID lockdowns being the one time that it didn't happen. Over that time, Camp Walden became sacred ground for me. Returning to the festival each year was like a pilgrimage, and I felt like prostrating on my knees to kiss the ground when I showed up. I would fill with joy and energy of well-being, just on arriving at the camp. This place was an anchor for me each year. Whatever went on in my life, the week at the Woodstock Fruit Festival at Camp Walden was a shining jewel I waited patiently for. The festival has been paradise on earth, a nirvana of positive energy, beautiful intentions, smiles, hugs, and gratitude. I would often have my best conversations of the year at the festival, often on just the first day. It is a gathering of like-minded people on the path to live the good life, a life of health, happiness, freedom, and peace. Often those on that path are at odds with a world constantly accelerating towards personal and planetary destruction. Finding other like-minded people on this path and being able to spend time with them for a week at such a beautiful place was a heavenly experience. Too many people in the world line up to be offered solutions to their health and lifestyle issues that simply don't work. Attention, energy, money, and human time pours towards industries that are not solving the problems they are meant to help eradicate. At Woodstock, we learn that turning to nature is often our best choice. Returning to the proverbial Garden of Eden can bring us back to harmony on earth. We can once again walk on earth as part of the world of nature. For many people, this place has been a vortex, a portal, a place of transformation, a place to be reborn, a place to heal, stretch, grow, ascend. Growth is not always a nice feeling, and many of us have been through intense experiences at the festival also. But this is just the other side to the richness of the event. I have attended 2 weddings at the festival, 2 memorials celebrating the lives of beloved friends that passed. I have watched the progression of babies becoming children and children becoming young adults. I have seen friends go from dead broke, living in a garage or on the couches of friends, to travelling the world making great sums of money through inspiration they received at the festival. It has changed lives in so many ways. This year has so many moments of bliss. They seem very simple when written down. Deepening friendships and connections, sitting in the sun by the lake, singing with Kirsten, Sky, and other friends, dancing at the sugarcane parties, campfires, a few great conversations, walking around the lake, pickleball with Dev in the mornings, gathering together out of the rain. Simple moments, but absolutely rich and divine moments at the same time. Sometimes I would just sit and bask in the wonder of just being around so many wonderful people. What a wonderful tribe we are. How lucky I am to be here. Does Woodstock make it easy to appreciate and love people, or are the people that go easy to love? Tim Van Orden used to say for him it was the Woodstock Awesome People Festival. I have accumulated many great moments in my life here. I hope I can look back throughout my life and continue to benefit from the rich memories and continue to receive sustenance from these times. The friendships and connections go deep and have an impact that will last decades and probably a lifetime. Meeting people in real life is always a more impactful experience that lasts so much longer. You might ask, why does it sound like I'm talking past tense? The festival has plans to continue and move to Florida. There's a good chance it may get even better now. That is all true, but there's still a part of me that feels like something has ended, like an inner child that is still confused and hasn't understood the situation yet. I experienced some surprisingly intense emotions on leaving. I was sad to miss the Fruit Luck in Central Park, which I would always try to stay for. Had I known it would be the last one, I would definitely have made an extra effort. It has always been hard to explain and describe this event for those who have not attended. It absolutely baffled me that the event was not full every year with raw vegans from the US. I knew of so many raw vegans very close to that camp that never attended. It really made no sense to me. How could people willingly miss out on this? One thing I have learned is that fruit brings good people together. Perhaps fruit also brings the best out of people. Sometimes the universe opens up its hand and puts a golden opportunity in your path. Paradise, nirvana, a heaven on earth. are yours for the taking. I'm proud to say I was able to accept that opportunity every year. The goddess of life offered me the magic elixir of Woodstock, and I drank my fill every year. My cup overflowed. I was anointed in its sweet waters, or perhaps it was sugarcane juice. Long live the Woodstock Fruit Festival in Camp Walden. I look forward to new adventures and horizons in Florida. Do not miss it. So, that was my statement, and I was very emotional when I left the camp. I was crying, and I I get emotional, but I don't really cry that easily, like fully cry. And I was fully sobbing on leaving the camp. And generally, I'm not like that. I usually leave the festival, I feel positive, and everyone's like crying and they're sad to leave, and I'm like, I'm looking forward to going back home and kind of bringing this information to more people and moving on with my life. And that's the way I've always approached the festival. But this time was different, and I suppose so. To bring somebody up to speed, the festival was started by Michael Arnstein, and I don't know a great amount about Michael, but apart from what he shares publicly, but he was a very motivated athlete. He was a high level runner. He became an ultra runner when he started doing the fruit diet. He was looking for something to improve his performance, and he got into the fruit diet through his wife, who was reading 8 to 10 10 somehow. And they got into that, and they went to Doug's events and got into the whole lifestyle, and his running started to take off. He really committed to the diet 100%, and he started to set his own personal records. And then he was feeling so good and feeling so invincible as a runner that he started doing ultra races. He started to win those races and do really well there. And he obviously was absolutely passionate about the community and the fruitarian diet, but he didn't have a lot of friends and people to share it with. And he'd been at Doug's events and he had a great time there, and he basically said, I'm going to do something like this and do something bigger. And I think that from what I've been told, at that point he was very much still very enamored by Doug and still very supportive of Doug, and part of it was about putting on something kind of in for the benefit of Doug as well, for the benefit to bring this lifestyle to more people and to celebrate Doug and his work. And that's something that you won't see on the website anymore or anything, but that was apparently a part of it, according to some people. So Mike also is a successful business person and runs the Natural Sapphire Company, and it's a website, and maybe it's an actual location as well, that sells high-end jewelry and sapphires and stuff. And there's a connection there with Sri Lanka and wherever you get sapphires from. And so he's been successful at taking that and putting it online and using websites and things to sell high-end jewelry, I suppose. Like I don't, honestly, again, I've never really spoken to him about it, but that's what it looks like. And very motivated guy, and successful guy, and also had a wife and 3 kids, I believe, at the time. He was still quite a young guy. I think he was in his early 30s when he started the Woodstock Festival, or maybe his mid 30s, but he was not like an old guy at the time, Pardon me. And so he was taking all this on top of all the other things in his life. And from what I talked to him, he said that his business, he was doing well with his business, but he wasn't passionate about it. Like, it wasn't like his passion in life. And that he was, to some degree, he was more proud of what he did with Woodstock, or that was like something that was more like his real contribution to the world kind of thing. And so he's been keeping it going for years, but there's always been this background thing. And one of the reasons I kept going was there was always a sense that it could come to an end at any moment, because it was fairly well known that it wasn't doing that well financially, and we had lost money on a number of years, I think. And the expenses of the event were very high. And it was you know, I remember they used to put the expenses up on the website. They don't anymore. But that camp at Walden, to rent it is $100,000 for 1 week, and then you also have to pay for the staff, which is another, I think, $12,000 to $15,000 for the staff who kind of work in the camp and stuff. And there might be other charges on top of that. Like I don't entirely know. So it's an expensive place to just rent that place, and cover that is already pretty expensive. And then with the food, there was always something like they could never get the food delivered, so they always had to find truck drivers and rent trucks, and it was very kind of complicated. I never fully understood why they were doing that, but apparently this was the only way they could do this. No one would deliver to the. I can't believe people wouldn't deliver to the camp, but anyway, um, they couldn't get anyone to drive that far and deliver from New York. Although I don't know why they would have to deliver from New York, because there's closer cities than Manhattan. But I guess they wanted to go to the place in Manhattan to get the fruit and all that. And the fruit was, and in America food's fairly expensive compared to other places, and they were always trying to get the best, and he was never holding back. Like he was getting thousands of durians uh, for the festival, like or I mean, it seemed like thousands, and there was, he had an abundance mindset, and it was always like, I mean, there was a couple of years where the food, because of problems with the delivery and stuff, was not as good. But when it got into the swing of it, the food was always like abundant in Woodstock, and always has been. And that was his mint. And he was always trying to make sure there was always loads of food out, and there was no queue and everything. And he wanted to make sure that all of that. Also, there was an abundance of activities. Like there was always so much in the schedule. There was loads of speakers. There was always loads to do. So it was an event that just overflowed with energy and stuff to do, and everything. And but over the years, Mike stopped playing a role. You got to realize he used to be the opening at the opening ceremony. He would go up and deliver like the motivational speech and stuff, and he would introduce a lot of the people, and he would give talks at the event, and he would be always around at the event, and he would be coming into your room and saying, "Is everything okay?" I remember he did that. Is everything going okay? And little touches like that. It was great. He was leading the runs. He was doing loads, and he was always active, always around. And gradually over the years, he became less and less and less and less active and part of the event. And I think he had major enthusiasm and love and passion, and I think that started to fade a little bit. And whether that was because he started to move away from the diet, which he might have done, whether that's because he had a lot of complications in his life, it might have been his family. I think that Woodstock in many ways was for his family as well. Like he wanted his kids to be doing this, and his kids weren't. I don't even know if they're vegan or anything, but he wanted them to eat more like this, and I think that caused some tensions in his family actually, from what I witnessed. And his wife Victoria, she used to be a big part of the festival as well, and she would sometimes do comedy at the festival, and she was always like a fun person, but a very could be a very passionate and fiery person as well, and it probably wasn't the easiest thing to run an event with her around, and they had a few fights and stuff, but that's their dynamic. I don't think it's anything too too nasty or whatever. It's just that's the way they are. But um, she really defended him in a big way. She was very defensive of the festival and of him. So, but she stopped coming to the festival, and he was still coming. But then gradually, the last few years, it was seemed like he was there, but he was less part of it. He wasn't really giving a talk that much. He might still lead a run, but it was like he was doing less and less. And and this year he wasn't there at all. And there was a rumor he was going to show up, and he didn't show up. And probably for a lot of the new people, they wouldn't have even known who he was, maybe, because he's also been off social media now. When I've mentioned this to Mike, he says, oh, people don't want to watch me. They're not interested in an old guy. He sees himself as an older guy now. They want to see like young people. And honestly, like the interview we did with Mike on the Love Fruit podcast is like the biggest interview. I think it's probably still the most watched interview that we've got. There was a couple that were very highly watched, but I think his was up there. People are still interested in Mike. Like he made an impression on a lot of people. Obviously, he founded the Woodstock Fruit Festival, so they know that as well. But people have always been asking me about Mike and what's he doing and where is he and what's happening with him. And I don't really know, a lot of the time what's happening with him. But I interviewed him, so I'm guessing that he's maybe not really doing. I think he's not been 100% raw for many years. I think he fell off that maybe quite a while ago, and maybe he's been mostly or trying, but it's really hard to stay mostly raw. Like it just doesn't really work for most people. Um, whether he stayed vegan, I don't know. Like it's not really something I'm that bothered about or interested in, and I do this for me and not to try and live up to someone else. But uh, I remember that guy that was that really passionate leader, and the festival has felt a little bit like it lacked a leader when he kind of stepped down from that place. There was like a lack of leadership, and there's always to me felt even in this movement a slight lack of leadership, and that's not great for things moving forward. But he wasn't there this year, and apparently he's not going to be part of it anymore. Now the funny thing is, nothing was announced really about that. These are just things that I've heard through people and things. I don't even know if any of that's public yet, and maybe I shouldn't say it, but I think he stepped back from it. I sent him an email thanking him, and it does seem like he said, I did what I could, and I'm moving on to other things. I think he basically said that, like he's moving on to other things and having a less stressful life. He said so. I think Woodstock brought a lot of stress, but I think it brought a lot of stress. Like he took that stress on. Like, did it have to be at $100,000 a week camp? Probably not, right? Probably didn't. Did they have to try and do 2 weeks? One year they tried to do 2 weeks, and now then they were paying $188,000 or something like that. Like, and then $30,000 on top of that for the staff. Like, the amount of people you have to have just to cover that expense. That's not to break even at the festival. That's to cover the a fixed expense of the festival. In other words, it doesn't matter how many people show up. You have to pay that whole amount. And it is a lot of people. They had to get a lot of people, and they did get a lot of people, but I think they lost money, and I don't know the full details about all that. Whether he got his money back, maybe got all the money back at the end of the day. I don't know. But to start at a point where you have to cover $100,000 up front, or not up front, but like you have to cover that before anything else, is a tough place to be. And unless you're the person that owns the camp or whatever. And I think he did say once he actually offered the guy who owns Walden to take it on. And it's funny that it would actually probably be fairly, but I guess he was happy getting his $100,000 every year. So because Walden expanded every year after that, like they had new buildings, new things, and you're thinking, is this like a lot of Woodstock money going into this? But anyway, so the fact that he's not part of it anymore, and there's that guy who's willing to take that huge risk isn't there anymore, and now Yulia takes over. Is it definitely going to happen? And that's where I'm probably partly where I was in my mind. I was thinking this could never happen again. This might not happen again. Yulia might say to herself, "This is like, but quite a responsibility," and it's it's hard to say, but I think our intention is to keep it going. Everyone wants to keep it going, and they want to move it to Florida. So, uh, but I don't know. It's an end of an era, and as I said in that thing, it was like sacred ground. It really was like this is. I would turn up and just walk around the camp and just connect with it and just be like, oh, the basketball courts. I would walk around just to see the place, and I love the place. I love the air. I love the lake. I love the light. I love the weather. Everything was pretty much perfect there. Um, they had a little bit of poison ivy, maybe is the only thing, but it was to me it was couldn't have been better really. There might be better places, but couldn't really be better. So that's me building up to all that. Anyway, to talk about this year. I mean, this is quite a long conversation, but hopefully some of you are still enjoying this. Please let me know if you're happy to hear me going on about this stuff and rambling a little bit. And I'm just getting a lot off my chest. I want to keep it entertaining, interesting. So my review of this year then, um, and I've still got man, I've got so much to say about this festival. It's such a big part of me in many ways. So 2022, I turned up in New York. I was not like in a really excited mood. I was just kind of I was looking forward to it, but I wasn't super hyped up about it. And it's something I want to say to people who are running events. You want to make people feel a sense of excitement about the event they're coming to, and sometimes we need to, and me as well, need to improve on what we're doing with trying to make build up the excitement beforehand. But I would often forget about why I was going. I committed to going, but I was always like, why am I going back to this? And then I would turn up and I'd be like, oh yeah, this. I would remember. And that's what I'm talking about, the feeling of well-being, the feel like I would sometimes just feel this like, okay, now I'm in a higher space. Like it was a beautiful thing. I stayed in a place called the Jazz Hostel in Manhattan for one night. I ended up randomly being in a room with a guy called John, who I've met at Woodstock before, John Jessome. He's a Canadian. We happened to be randomly sharing a room together, and a lady called Jessica, who was in she wasn't in our room, but she was in another room in the hostel, and even that part of New York and the Whole Foods there at Columbus Circle and the Central Park, like that's where a lot of Fruit Looks have happened. That's where a lot of gatherings have happened, and sometimes really boring gatherings. Sometimes just after the festival, like 5 days after the festival, and we're sort of like trying to keep it going, and it's not quite, it's not quite there, but we're just hanging out in Central Park doing nothing. But sometimes really great times as well, and met a lot of people there. So that whole part of the world, I feel this connection with because of this whole event and the community and the tribe and everything. Um, and then went on the bus the next day, which left from roundabout Grand Central Terminal or whatever it's called, near Penn Station, Grand Central. And as I'm getting on the bus, this lady says, "Can I take a picture with you?" And I said, "Why?" And it turned out she was a fan of the podcast, and she'd, you know, listened to and some people. What I've learned this year, some people said to me, "I've watched all your podcasts, or I've listened to all of them," and it was a lady called Nicole, and we basically just sat and spent the whole bus journey talking to each other, and it was a really good conversation. I don't know if she's listening, but thank you very much, Nicole. Like that put me in a great mood for the festival, and we didn't spend that much time at the festival, but but that sometimes happens with the people you hang out with on the bus. And I'd actually played a role in her going, and I was so happy about that. I really, you know, if any of you ever go to something because I've let you know about it, feel free to reach out and tell me, because that makes me feel really good. I really love the idea that I've been able to encourage someone to go, because I know they're going to have a great time. Like especially at Woodstock, I was like, I know that people are going to love this if they go. So I really wanted people to go. Um, got to the camp, got to the cabin. The opening ceremony the first night. It was great. It was run by Erin, who has been a part of the festival the last few years. Erin and Evan Whirlwind, and Evan's been a pillar of the festival since the start. He plays the didgeridoo. He's a Jamaican guy. He does Tai Chi in the morning on his own usually. He's just always been a part of the festival, playing didgeridoo, doing Tai Chi, and doing little classes here and there. He used to live in New York. I think he lives in Spain now. And him and Yulia were good friends, and he's always just been this part of the event, and a great guy. And I'd never seen him like actually being part of the opening ceremony before, but he was up there talking, and it was great to see that. Something about the opening ceremony, I felt like they didn't really talk about the diet, and that's something that transitioned with Woodstock. It used to be there was 19 speakers, and we're teaching people about this diet, and we're leading people, and everyone's 100% raw, and this person's 20 years raw, this person's 15 years raw, this person's 35 years raw. I'm like, wow, wow, 30 years raw, like we're all celebrating. And they stopped doing all of that. They were talking about how they used to have 19 speakers, now they had 6, and they had a lot less talks, and that's evolved over the years, where they've had less speakers and more activities and more of the party vibe, and it's been less about the speakers. And I never bought. It never bothered me, the idea of they're the speakers and we're the people. Like I enjoyed that. Like I'm happy to go and learn. Like I'm there to learn from these people, and I'm happy to appreciate them for who they are. I'm not going to get annoyed about why am it. I want to be them, and I should be there, and I like that's not me. I'm going there to learn from these people, and I don't need to be the center of attention all the time. But some people felt, cliquishness or whatever it is. I never really sensed that or felt that, and I was always pretty, happy. But it was difficult to get a conversation with any of them because they were always like speaking to a lot of people. But over the years, like a whole bunch of the people that were played a big role in the festival disappeared, and for all sorts of different reasons I won't get into right now. Um, and I, you know, think that there wasn't. So what happened is people that were 100% raw used to be the main people of the festival, and gradually it was people that weren't really 100% raw, or some of them weren't even vegan, started to play more of an influence in the festival. And some of them were people with big personalities and a lot of confidence, and they were extroverts, and but they weren't necessarily. They definitely weren't raw. And sometimes you're thinking, I'm not even sure if these people are vegan. Like there's a bunch of people like that. They were very talented and good, and ran things, and did the opening ceremony, and were MCs, and did stuff, but they weren't really on message with this lifestyle. And to me, that I wanted to see that personally. I wanted to still see that it was about that it was important. And we kind of it's kind of like we're not even mentioning the diet that much. Okay, we're eating it all, but we're not really saying that much about it. And almost like, hey, don't be too worried about this, and don't be forced. And I want to hear more about that. But a lot of the people who are running some of the activities and stuff are not necessarily on message with this diet completely. So, and a lot of the people at the festival aren't either. I get that, but I personally think that it's important to see that, and it wasn't really included, but it was quite good. I don't like things where it's like, okay, turn around to the person next to you, look deeply into their eyes, tell them you love them. Like I don't like. So there was a little bit of that going on in the opening ceremony. Like I don't want to do that. Like I'm happy to talk to the person or something, but looking deeply into their eyes and all that stuff, it's pushing people a little bit far too quickly for a lot of people. So anyway, um, but yeah, the festival. My highlights of the festival, um, the sugarcane in the morning. They would have a sugarcane station. Go down and get sugarcane freshly squeezed. There's always music playing. They were playing usually yacht rock radio, which was really fun, and a lot of good parties. And sometimes the DJ Kaufman would. They always have a DJ at Woodstock as well. The DJ would go down, and there would be a party at the sugarcane station in the morning, and it was so much fun. It was brilliant. And you know, it's kind of like being in a, you know, it's the equivalent of being in a club or a public, but instead of drinking beers, you're drinking sugarcane. And it was one day that I drank like 6 or 7 glasses of sugarcane. Like I was drinking a lot of sugarcane, and it was great. Um, there was the durian parties. There was a number of durian parties at the festival. They were just fantastic. The first one was just fantastic. There was a lot of dancing, a lot of durian. The one thing I say about the durian parties, people will take a durian onto the dance floor and start like dance, like kind of throwing it around, not throwing it around, but dancing around with it. And it's quite dangerous. Like it's it's a spiky fruit. It's going to hurt someone. It could cut someone. So once we've made the point of like, hey, durian, like put it down and let's dance. But that was a fantastic night. Everyone coming together and people trying durian for the first time, and opening durian for people that don't know how to open it, and it's just fun, and seeing the look on people's faces is brilliant. Um, and for me, just the place again, the lake. I spent a lot of time at the lake with conversations with a few friends. I really spent a lot of time with my friend David Stewart, who brings the mud, and we're doing mud quite a lot, which is the Dead Sea mud you put on yourself and it dries, and then you jump in the lake, and it's a fun activity, and everyone does it together and stuff. It's great fun, and I spent quite a lot of time with David, just hanging out with him and talking and listening, and just things like that. You know, just connecting with certain people, and then other people coming over, and these little groups that form in these conversations, and it uh, can be very nice. And because once again, because you're not around each other all the time, people feel maybe a bit more open to opening up at these events, because they're not talking to their friends and family. You know, they're talking to people that they've not met before, maybe. So Musan King, there was a Musan King party. There was actual Musan King there, which is a type of durian. I was playing pickleball with a guy called Dev, friend of mine, who played pickleball. I enjoyed that. There's kirtan at the event. I'm not the hugest fan of kirtan, um, but I helped out with that a little bit, played a bit of guitar, and that was fun. I was in the talent show. The talent show was great. I got a good reception from that. A lot of people liked the song I was playing. That was really fun. And in terms of talks, I did go to a few talks. I went to Don's first talk. I went to Dr. Sam, a couple of his talks actually. One on breath. Um, but probably the talk that stood out for me. I didn't go to a lot of talks, but the one that stood out for me was Jeanette, also known as Misfit Vegan, Jeanette D'Onofrio. She gave a talk on dating and socializing as raw vegan. And Jeanette is like first class to me. Like I just felt like the audience just really loved her, like really wanted to listen to her, really enjoyed her, and she just connected with the audience so well and so easily, and she just made a great class, and she was just so, and as someone that's run events and worked with speakers and things, to see someone that's really prepared well is also good. You know, it's like good to see people actually putting a good amount of effort into their talks and things, and really making an effort for people. So, and she's been a bigger part of the festival over the last couple of years. And if anyone can help keep this going and keep it growing, then she's to me like, if she's playing a part in it, then I think it has a good chance of doing really well. Um, and she's been a great part of this whole community, and she's more and more becoming one of the main sort of leaders and people and someone that people should look to, really. So you should go and follow her online if you don't, Misfit Vegan. Um, I've never seen ducks at the festival. For some reason, there was ducks. We weren't meant to feed them. Never really seen ducks much, but there were ducks hanging about. There was a few days of rain, but generally the weather was really good. Even at night, it was quite warm. The cabin I was in was designed for about probably 12 or 14 people, and there was only three of us in there, so there was a lot of space, and I had a nice time in there. Um, And then the leaving, like the closing ceremony, I played a role in that. I was playing music. I had to help Evan set up the sound system. I wasn't expecting to do any of that, but he kind of asked me, and we played a little bit of Bob Marley and John Lennon, and common songs that people like, and everyone was singing together, and it was a good vibe. And then Kirsten was singing, and I love Kirsten. Kirsten is she sings it. She's been singing at the festival the last couple of years, and playing music and singing, and he was part of the kirtan. And I enjoy her company so much. We had a moment playing music together, and also Sky and a few other people joined in, and that was one of my highlights. I loved it. I loved playing music with her. I hope to see her again. Um, so these things, like, you don't pay to like hang out with a person and play music with them, right? That's the value of the event. Like, the added value of the event is are these experiences, are these memories, are these people that you connect with. Like, it's hard to get this across to people, it's such a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful space, and you meet these great people. And I honestly, like, say with Kirsten, like, I was one day I was sitting with David and Kirsten. I was just like so happy just to be sitting with these people, just so happy to be sitting there enjoying time. And then, oh, she wants to play music together, and feeling like blessed, like, oh wow, amazing. We get to spend some time together and play some music together. And, I was just going into a trance almost, like when we were singing and playing. And I just don't get a lot of opportunities to play with great musicians, and it was so special to me. And there was a night where, I think it was the last night, she was doing the kirtan, and then I went to bed, and then I kind of got up and I walked, and there was no one else around, and all of a sudden Kirsten appeared out of the darkness, and we're down at the kitchen. She's like, "Are you coming to the?" And there was some dance party going on, a silent dance party. That was another feature of the festival this year, was like a silent dance party with the headphones on, and I was so glad to see her. Like, she I don't know why, but I feel really happy to see her. And she was wearing like a, what do you call it? We call it a boiler suit. My dad, it's the kind of thing my dad would wear when he's like working under a car. Like, what do you call that? Like a jumpsuit or something, a boiler suit. She was wearing something. I said she looked like one of the Ghostbusters. It was like a Ghostbusters outfit, and we went out, and we went up, and we were and there was a bunch of people actually dancing, and we were dancing a bit there, and I was just eventually got so tired. So there was a few nights that I stayed up way too late, and I was like collapsing, had to go to bed. So um, you can get really tired at Woodstock, and that's trying to not get tired is a good thing, but it's difficult to do. Um, so and we played at the closing ceremony. She was playing as well, and she played Woodstock, which is a song by Joni Mitchell, and I was kind of crying when she was playing that, because it just made me think about the festival and everything, and all that. So um, so that was all a big part of the festival for me. It's, to me at this stage, because I'm not going to the talk so much, I'm not learning as much as I used to, but I can still learn a lot. But it becomes more and more and more about the people and the connections and the activities. And for a lot of people, that's what it was always about. For me, I kind of had to learn that a little bit more. Like, about that, and really I started to realize that's why it's important to go back to these events, and that's what the joy of these events was. It was the people, and it was, meeting Nicole on the bus on the first day, um, and spending time with David down at the lake a bunch of times, and doing the mud, and playing music with Kirsten, and being at the fire, and with various people, and um, going on walks with people, and just simple things like that. So simple, and you would say that to people, and they would go, "That doesn't sound like all that great," but it's wonderful, fantastic. Like, and it's great people, and that's the main thing. So it's hard to put that into words. And I think a lot of people, they, you know, if they say I'm going back to Woodstock, maybe their friends and family are like, "Why are you going back to that thing again?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, I don't know why. We just eat fruit in a field. That's all on a hill." It's so easy to say that. Or you just go and eat fruit with people. Is that what it is? It's kind of like, yeah, that is kind of what it is. But it's also way more than that, and it's hard to translate that for people sometimes. So it's a beautiful thing. Um, and I left, and as I said, I was on the next morning getting the bus, and I was quite sad. And they didn't really tell us up front. I wish they'd said up front, this is the last time we're going to be at Walden, but maybe they didn't know. I wish they'd said that up front. I wish they explained more about the situation and what was happening and how things were changing. Yulia didn't go up and really say anything, I don't think. So it's hard to know sometimes what's going on. And it's just kind of rumours circulating around. I don't really like that. I'd rather wait for them to make a statement, but that's how things happened. So there's been different eras of the Woodstock Fruit Festival. And this era has come to an end. There was the era of the pioneers and of Mike being, the leader and being playing a huge role and being up front and out there. Then they've transitioned to more of an era of activities and bringing out more of the I guess the party thing, and ultimately the food got a lot better, and then Miami Fruit became part of it, and there's been a number of different, like Roy Rosman was a big part of it one year. He was one of the main people in, and Roy's a great guy, but he's not, I don't think he's vegan. And Charles and Davis, these twins, brilliant guys. I don't think they're vegan either, or maybe one of them was at the time. But brilliant people, like nothing against them. They were brilliant at what they did. They brought a lot of joy and fun to the event, but they they weren't really on message, I think, with the diet entirely. And there's just been various people that have risen and been the main star at the festival and disappeared, and there's been all these different changes in different eras, and all of us that have been there many times. I went 10 times. There's some people that have went 11 times. Some people went even to the Hawaii one and went 12 times. Like, we've seen all the changes and we've loved it every year. We've not been affected by all the outside stuff that's happened, the dramas and the everything. We've loved it for what it is. We know what it's about. We know it's not about the dramas. It never really has been. It's never been that important. All the dramas are like a little thing on the surface compared to the ocean of what the festival is. And as I said in my statement, it's been a special place for me, place of transformation, place of growth, connection, and I'm sad that more people didn't take advantage of it when it was there. I wish that every year it had comfortably filled up, and that's, to me, that's been their biggest mistake of the whole thing. They never totally learned how to fill the festival. That's the only really thing they got wrong. Because if they filled the festival every year and it was profitable every year, then I think it would probably still go at Walden. It would keep going at Walden, and it would have got bigger. They might have been able to legitimately do 2 weeks and actually fill it out. Maybe do 3 weeks. Like who knows where it could have went. But they never quite learned how to get enough people to the event. And if you don't totally know how to make that happen and make sure that happens, then it's very hard for you to continue to take the risk of $100,000 payment for a camp, and then however much more for food and all the rest of it. So without Mike being there to kind of safeguard that, if he can, probably doesn't want to, will the festival continue? I hope it does. If it's on, they say Florida, South Florida in February. So I'm planning on going. There's a lot of people that are planning on going. I want to be there, and I hope and pray that it's the same vibe, that it's better, that a lot of the same people are there, and that it continues. But my fear is that could change or not happen, or it's not the same thing anymore. And if it does, all good things come to an end, and it's been amazing. I really could not have enjoyed it more, and um, I regret that I probably didn't. In a sense, I ended up putting on my own festival, and there's part of me that thinks, why didn't I just commit to trying to get more people to Woodstock? Why didn't I just play that role rather than putting on my own festival and potentially taking away from Woodstock a little bit? Uh, and there was a time when I was like wanting to try and get as big as Woodstock, and we got pretty big with the UK festival. We got to 200 people. Um, and we were going to go over 200 people in in the COVID year, and then the COVID stuff came in, and and I don't know how big it could have gotten that year. It could. I really. It was. We were getting so many people signed up. It was great, and but things change, and things happen. So that's my piece about Woodstock. I've got so much more to say about it, but I think I'll leave it there. We're already 75 minutes. I don't know if any of you send me a message if any of you've listened to this. info@fruitfest.co.uk. Send me an email, or find me on Instagram, Fruity Ronster, or UK Fruit Fest on Instagram. Feel free to connect and let me know if you enjoyed this. If you got anything out of it, any of your feedback, and woodstockfruitfestival.com. I will try and get discount codes and stuff. I'll try and get that for people if you're looking, if they announce and they offer discounts and all that. I'll try and get one for the podcast, and I'd love to see how many people we can get there. But thank you very much, everyone, for listening and watching, for supporting this. We've got more interviews coming up. Join us on Friday nights for Fruity Fridays. If you're not subscribed to our newsletter, join us and go to fruitfest.co.uk. You can sign up for the newsletter there. And we'll send you announcements about Fruity Fridays and other things. Love to see you more. And connect and send a message, info@fruitfest.co.uk. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and please share this with others. And stay fruity, stay healthy, stay happy. And I look forward to meeting a lot of you someday. If you do meet me, feel free to come up and say hello. Don't hold back from doing that. I want to try and be open to talking to people. I might not look happy to talk to people, but please feel free to come up and say hello if you're ever at an event and you see me. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you later.